Britain needs to be complicit no more with tar sands. The chief NASA climate scientist James Hansen has described how this project will be game over for the climate. A project that's also been described as the most destructive in human history.
Yeah, I think it would be game over for the climate, because if we go down that path, the tar sands, the tar shale, the methane hydrates, there's a tremendous amount of carbon in the ground if we go after all of it. But we can't do that. The science has become crystal clear. We're going to have to move to clean energies. Eventually we'd have to do that anyway, but we had better do it now, or we are cheating our children and grandchildren out of the future.
Nation, Thomas Clayton Muller of the Indigenous Environmental Network.
It is the world's largest construction project ever in the history of mankind. No more earth moved in the tar sands since it began, since the Suez Canal, the Great Pyramids, every single dam on the planet, all combined. The Great Wall of China, all combined. That's how much earth they've moved in the tar sands thus far. And they're still nowhere close to where they want to go.
In Alberta, there is the second largest forest and second largest water delta in the whole world. This is all under threat from the massive tar sands expansion. Tar sands threatens the land, livelihoods and lives of First Nation people. In resistance, in late 2012, Sylvia McAdam was one of the co-founders of Idle No More. She explained to Occupy London Radio about the tar sands, the new laws that remove restrictions on corporations, and the situation for First Nations people.
So far, the tar sands, I've been told, have been grown to the size of France and Indonesia, and that's the size of the damage of the land and the water, the scope of the tar sands right now. And there are all kinds of new and bizarre cancers coming out of the effects of the chemicals being utilized and the damage and the water that's become undrinkable in those areas. We're seeing Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people who have to live in that area with strange and bizarre cancers, as well as the animals no longer able to hunt in those lands because animals are having cancers, and the fish even are having tumors that have been identified as cancerous, and they're also the birds are not going or returning to these lands that they've always been there. The Navigable Waters Protection Act, which was removed from Canada, putting all of our bodies of water and waterways at risk from the corporations such as nuclear, potash, oil and gas. They would have literally free access to the water, which means that the tar sands would be expanded and oil and gas would have literally no environmental assessments to prevent them, or in areas where environmental assessments are in place, the threshold would be lowered. There's a high level of poverty because of the colonization and the racism, so we don't get the jobs that are normally would be available to other Canadians, so we rely on the waters and the land to hunt. But not only that, it's a part of our identity, it's a part of our ceremonies. There are traditional foods that are integral and vital to conducting ceremonies, and as well there's medicines that are out in the land that we need for our health. Most Indigenous people are lactose intolerant. I'm lactose intolerant. I can't eat certain foods that the Europeans have adjusted to. So my reliance is indigenous food and indigenous berries and indigenous medicines.
Ray Ladowsa used to be a commercial fisherman.
I've been a commercial fisherman for 53 years in the whole Lake Athabasca. I had never ever seen deformed fish in my younger days. And I had lost at least 8 members of my family on cancer. Sometimes when I think about it, I get pretty upset what they had done to our lake and our waters and whatever we have over there to survive on. It's sad to say this, but it's true, no? We need help.
In the 1970s, David Schindler's research led to banning harmful phosphates in detergent. He was pivotal in the global fight to curb acid rain. Now he's turning his attention to the tar sands. Over the years, Schindler has watched governments turn water monitoring in the Athabasca River over to industry-funded consultants.
There have been papers that have come out recently showing that you can't reclaim the aquifers, that you can't reclaim the wetlands, that the cost of any reasonable reclamation are so high that there would be no money made on the oil sands. I don't think people realize how big the sacrifice zone is going to be.
The Alberta government claims to test the water.
It's paid for by the oil companies, and they own the data. All the public hears is that year after year, water quality in the Athabasca River is unchanged. It's just not a problem.
These pollutants are emerging pollutants. The first time it was really shown that at low concentrations they could have long-term impacts was at the Exxon Valdez. Sea otters and some of the waterfowl are still being affected 18 years after the spill. A lot of these same compounds are in high concentrations in the tar sands. They're toxic at parts per trillion.
In the mining operation, you're exposing all kinds of stuff to the air and to the wind. You dig the bitumen out of the ground, you've got to take out all of the coke in it, you've got to add a whole bunch of hydrogen, and that's a very energy-intensive process, so you've got lots of air pollution coming from that. A third of the country's nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxides are all coming from oil and gas facilities in Alberta, and the majority of all that is coming from the Fort McMurray area. For every barrel of bitumen, you create a barrel and a half of toxic waste that goes into a tailings pond. Those tailings ponds are all made of unlined sand, and the majority of them are leaking. The whole stream of production from beginning to end is very industrial, very messy, and has got pollutants associated with each and every stage.
So why create all this pollution?
It's hard to describe a smell other than it smells like money.
Digging the bitumen out of the ground, squeezing the oil and converting it into synthetic crude is a monumental challenge. It requires vast amounts of capital, Brobdingnagian technology, and an array of skilled workers. In short, it is an enterprise of epic proportions, akin to building the pyramids or China's Great Wall, only bigger.
There is no greater partnership than the one we have between Alberta and the United States. The pace of oil sands expansion is positioning Alberta to become one of the world's top oil producers. We've barely scratched the surface of the oil sands development, and we're just getting started.
Canada's Prime Minister and Alberta's Premier show one way we can resist their plans. Harper says how tar sands need a vast amount of capital. The Premier talks of partnership and how we only scratched away some of the surface in this destruction on epic proportions. British corporations and investors currently support tar sands.
A climate change conference is about to start, but outrageously, it's sponsored by Shell, and features the Canadian Environment Minister Peter Kent as a keynote speaker. Now Shell and Peter Kent together are effectively strangling climate action by lobbying very, very aggressively against effective climate policy such as the EU Fuel Quality Directive, such as higher caps on carbon emissions. And we're really concerned that this conference, by allowing Shell to sponsor it and Canada to speak, is essentially giving them a legitimacy that they don't have, they don't deserve. They are part of the problem and they are using their power to scupper effective climate action.
I'm very sorry, some very brief security announcements. I'm afraid it looks like someone's got into this conference.
Sorry.
False pretenses and has actually managed to make his way onto the stage. Because Mr. Peter Kent claims to be here to talk about solving climate change, but actually he's a member of a dangerous anti-environment group called the Canadian government, who are committed to wrecking the climate by handing out vast swathes of indigenous people's land to oil companies to carve up and extract some of the most polluting fuels on the planet. Because these dangerous foreign radicals are now spending a lot of time here in Europe. I'll just be a second, let's warn everyone. These foreign radicals spend a lot of time here in Europe interfering with our regulatory processes and structures in order to pursue their radical ideology, expanding the tar sands beyond all sense. So I just want to, I'm so glad you're here and being active here. Oh, good, security's here. He's just there if you want to remove him. He's an intruder, he shouldn't be here. He's the agent of a rogue petro-state of Canada. He's here to wreck the conference with his absolute nonsense and greenwash. So these people will be back in a moment to remove him. Don't worry, everybody. Don't worry. By the way, all this is on the record. Thank you.
We're about to be treated to some world-class greenwash. We're very privileged to be here. Obviously, it's quite expensive to actually be in the room. But Shell, not only do they sponsor events such as this, but they also have been lobbying, as Freedom of Information requests reveal, lobbying governments around the world and in Europe on the Fuel Quality Directive, which seeks to reduce the carbon intensity of fuel, because that is not compatible with a doubling of tar sands production.
Okay, we're here to represent the sponsors of today's event, the Royal Bank of Scotland.
Seems like every bank has got a price. I wonder how we sleep at night when the shares come first and the earth comes second. Don't stop for a minute and think, why is everybody so down at us? Why does everybody want to frown on us? Using every last drop, yeah, we're never gonna stop. We just wanna have a good time. Everybody look to the left, everybody look to the right. Can you feel that? Yeah, we're drilling for oil tonight. It's all about the money, money, money. We took all your money, money, money. We put it into tar sands. Forget about the humans. It's all about the cha-ching, cha-ching. All about the bling, bling, bling. Wanna pump the tar sands. Forget about the humans. You know we need to take it back in time, but we could get the oil just fine. And it wasn't all modes from these activist folks. Are we the only ones getting tired? Why is everybody so distressed? Oil is a great way to invest. If we all calm down and forget the bailout, guarantee we'll be doing just fine. Everybody look to the left.
They wanna pump the tar sands, forget about the humans. It's all about the money, money, money. We took all your money, money, money. We put it in the tar sands, forget about the humans. It's all about the cha-ching, cha-ching, all about the public. They wanna pump the tar sands, forget about the humans.
My name is Clayton Thomas Mueller, and I am the tar sands campaigner with the North American-based Indigenous Environmental Network. I just want to say it's a pleasure to speak to all the shareholders and to address the board today. Fort McKay Cree Nation is surrounded by tar sands development and its associated tailings ponds so large you can see them from outer space. Fort McKay First Nations community members wanted to raise issue with BP's lack of consultation over its new Sunrise in Situ project. Fort McKay First Nation is situated in the heart of oil sands. You can go in any direction. Within 20 miles, you'll find an oil sands plant. We refer to our little community of 700 people as Ground Zero because we are first impacted. How does the Husky BP Sunrise project impact us? Well, to start with, there are several parcels of land dedicated to the use of traditional trappers from the First Nation. But because the animals have disappeared, these trap lines are no longer used for trapping. However, they have become islands of cultural identity for local First Nation. We use them to escape the industrial activity and as a place to teach our children traditional ways. We are people whose very cultural identity are linked to the land. Our languages are rich with descriptions of the land and nature. The Husky BP Sunrise project has interfered with trap lines in the area, reducing access for local people and taking away the peace of our bush life. High traffic volumes and industrial activity have taken away this peace and in some cases have taken the land itself away. SAGD projects are touted as cleaner than the conventional mining process, but in fact the sheer volumes of water used impact surrounding land, drying up the muskeg, reducing animal habitat, and we still get the air pollution and with it more sickness in our communities. And so the question that I bring today is, with opposition steadily increasing against the Canadian tar sands extraction in all forms, with liabilities of project delays and or stoppages associated to the intervention on the part of First Nations governments, with ever-increasing numbers of litigations being filed by First Nations asserting their priority land rights, which are constitutionally enshrined and protected in the state of Canada, most notably Beaver Lake Cree Nation and Athabasca Chippewa Dene Nation, both of which have lawsuits against government regulators and tar sands operators. Can you please share with us how BP is managing this rapidly changing legal landscape in Canada and the risk that this presents to the interests of your shareholders? And in conclusion, I would also like to ask that the community representatives who First Nations representatives from North America have come to this meeting with to raise concerns, that the community representatives from the Gulf Coast who have come to have their voices heard be let into the meeting. They have shares, proxy access, but for some reason they've been barred. And I think it's very important that you, the board, and that you, the shareholders, listen to their voices because they bring the message from the grassroots in the Gulf of Mexico. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thanks Clayton for your comments, and I remember you well from last year also. You spoke well even then. Any other questions?
Allowing Shell and BP to manage the most destructive project ever seems about as stupid as giving all the money to the banks.
Theirs was the biggest ever offshore oil spill. Now BP will pay the biggest ever criminal fine in US history as part of a $4.5 billion settlement. The oil giant has pleaded guilty to 14 criminal charges relating to the Deepwater Horizon disaster, which killed 11 workers and fouled the Gulf of Mexico with millions of barrels of crude oil. Here's Jane Deeth.
The explosion in the Gulf of Mexico claimed 11 lives, and for 87 days millions of tons of oil spewed into the sea. The US government was threatening to take BP, which owned the well, to court. Today, the Justice Department announced the oil giant had settled the case by admitting guilt and paying a penalty of $4.5 billion.
The department filed a 14-count information charging BP with 11 counts of felony manslaughter, 1 count of felony obstruction of justice, and violations of the Clean Water and Migratory Bird Treaty Acts in connection with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill that began in April of 2010.
The United Nations says this is just one of the places where decades of devastating environmental damage and pollution has been caused by the oil company Shell. It's Ogoni, in the heart of Nigeria's vast oil-producing region, filmed by our crew in June last year. The UN report released last week says it will cost $1 billion and 30 years to clean up.
First Nations people have a unique political and legal identity within the Canadian context. We have nation-to-nation relationships. The Government of Canada has a fiduciary obligation to uphold our treaty rights to protect our health, our water, our access to clean water, clean air, clean earth. But these rights are clearly in jeopardy, and our very survival is at risk when we look at Canada's ongoing expansion of not only the Canadian tar sands, but of big mining all across the Canadian North. And this is environmental racism, This is the Alberta regulatory process. They're in the pockets of big oil.
Since the start of colonial rule, the British establishment annihilated Indigenous
The British had been defeated in their attempt to conquer Fort Carillon on Lake Champlain, so Sir Geoffrey Amherst, commander of the British forces, met with Indians who were sympathetic to the French. Under the pretense of friendship, he deliberately offered them blankets previously used by smallpox victims.
This shameful British history gives us the power to be complicit no more. In her radio interview, Sylvia McAdams explained,
because the monarch is the one we took treaty with, we signed treaty, not the Canadian state. And here, the Canadian state is dishonoring those treaties. The reason why the Constitution was repatriated in 1982 to Canada was on the condition that Canada uphold the honor of the Crown, and we want the London citizens to know that the Canadian state is not honoring the Crown.
In 1899, Francois Paulette's grandfather signed a treaty with the British Crown. As a 22-year-old chief in the 1970s, Paulette went to the Supreme Court to argue Canada had let down its side of the bargain. He won the case. His victory changed Canadian law.
And British imperial law that the Cree people owned that part of Alberta. The most important promise in the treaty is that the Cree Indians would have the right to hunt and fish. Except now, if you look at northern Alberta, particularly northeastern Alberta, where the tar sands developments are, the developments are so vast, the disruption of the landscape is so extensive, that it's now fair to say the treaty rights themselves can no longer be meaningfully exercised because the habitat of the animals is being destroyed right before our eyes.
there is a British government petition calling on the UK to be complicit no more with tar sands. Whereas Britain is investing billions of pounds into tar sands, it is only investing a fraction of that into renewable energies.
The Act actual thing that's needed is not that difficult. It's a simple, honest, rising fee on carbon emissions, which should be collected from the fossil fuel companies and distributed to the public. 60 to 70% of the people would get more in that dividend than they would pay in increased energy prices. The few richest people would pay more. But that would solve the problem, because with a modest rising fee, after 10 years, the United States emissions would be reduced 30%. That's equivalent to more than 10 Keystone XL pipelines. So there are much simpler ways than building Keystone XL pipelines. That's what we have to make clear to the public.